Okay, there's one more step to do in terms of data preparation when we look at these data. To illustrate this, let me put the Tom.bio records tool back up and take off the processing toolbox. I'm going to clear this temporary layer and just plot the data again as their raw points. So you can see when we look at these data that a good number of them fall outside the area of interest. This is quite unusual in my experience in terms of recording schemes. Normally the data in the spreadsheets are confined to the area of interest, but here we're going to have to do something in order to remove these data, ensure we're only working with the points that are relevant to Yorkshire. Now you have to think carefully about this, because don't forget these points we're seeing down here at the moment, they represent the centre of the grid squares represented by the grid references at which they were recorded. So even though, for example, this one is outside of Yorkshire, when you look at it, it's the centre point of a grid square which may well overlap Yorkshire, and the actual record could have been recorded anywhere within that grid square as far as we know from just looking at those data. So the approach I'm going to take is to only remove those items where the grid squares don't overlap Yorkshire. And to help us with that, we've got this second function up here to display the records as the grid squares represented by their grid references. So I'm going to remove this temporary layer and use this function. So now we can see each record represented by a square corresponding to its grid reference. So what I want to do is just work with the ones where that overlaps Yorkshire, no matter how slightly. So I'm going to use this spatial query tool to help me do that. I'm going to say select everything from Temper Paris Major where it intersects Yorkshire and apply that. And this will take a little while. At the end of the process, you'll see those squares that even intersect Yorkshire a little bit will be highlighted in yellow, and I will then save those selected squares to an entirely new layer, a CSV file effectively. So we'll have a new CSV file to work with all those that are outside of Yorkshire will have already been removed. So this is a bit of a time-consuming step. And if there were a way of weeding these out in the actual spreadsheet to start with, that would be much better. Okay, so I'll close that. We've got our squares selected, so all the purple ones basically we want to ditch. So I'm going to right click this temporary layer, the one with the selected squares, and say save as. Make sure my save only selected features box is checked. I'm going to save it not as an Esri shape file, a map layer this time, but as a comma separated value file, which is above it there. Browse. So we'll call it Great Tits edited. Save. Okay. So now that has been opened automatically up here. So I'm going to delete all our temporary layers. Now I'm going to take off Great Tits CSV because we no longer really need that. We're going to work with the edited one. So up here now, you can see it's come to Great Tit edited. I need to select the abundance column because we've got that funny little spelling error in it. Select the taxa again. And now, if we do records to points, you can see that we're only now working with records corresponding to Yorkshire. And again, we're good to go.